Hello, hello, good people of the internet. Welcome to the Nerdy News Hour. It's like the news, but for nerds. As always, I'm sitting down with a bunch of awesome nerds. First up, a guest that is here so much, he's practically a regular, James from the Rebel Scum Podcast. James, how are you, good sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, not a problem. How's the week been for you? You had a birthday yesterday that you lied to me about. How did that go?
I had a birthday yesterday. I lied to you, but I just decided not to tell you about it. It was good. I went out for a nice dinner. Got a nice wicked sunburn. I'm ready to be a year older and a little less wiser.
Woo! Perfect. Yeah. Also here, as usual, is Anime Dan. Dan, how's the week been for you? I hear there's a new Overwatch map out.
Oh yeah, it's been awesome. We got Overwatch map, we've got Horizon Lunar Colony. This map features low gravity, so you're just zipping around, jumping, shooting at people from way up in the sky. And then of course they added gravity as a changeable feature in custom games, so now you can take any map, turn the gravity way down, and you're just flying all over the place. It's hilarious.
That sounds awesome. So you can go low grav in any level?
Yeah, the custom games feature is actually pretty overlooked in Overwatch, but you can customize just about everything. You can increase like the kinetic force of things that knock people back, so you can just play ping pong with characters. You can turn off cooldowns, so you can always be invisible. All kinds of crazy stuff.
That is really cool. That's I hear all these weird things about Overwatch every once in a while, and I'm like, man, I should really get back on that game. That's another one in the bucket. Also here is Justin, as per usual. Justin, how's the nerdy week been for you? Playing a lot of Final Fantasy 14, I think, right?
Yes. I've been playing a ton of the samurai class, like I did in that video. I'm still legendarily bad at Red Mage. I got a lot of people reaming me out in private messages for that, like, dude, you're supposed to use this ability. What are you doing? You're so bad. You never cast that thing. Let me tell you how to actually play the class. So that was funny. But I've resigned my fate to being a samurai, and I'm 8 levels in from when I started. I'm level 58 now. It's so much fun. Oh my gosh. I love just like sheathing my katana and yelling in coherent Japanese and slashing people for like 4,000 damage. It's insane. It's great.
Do you know what's so funny? It's like, I don't know if you and I have ever talked about this, but I was a huge Final Fantasy 11 player, and my first main was a Red Mage, which you could play right out of the gate. Which was super fun. And then eventually, and my most favorite job was the samurai job in Final Fantasy XI. I am of the opinion that Final Fantasy XI was the best MMO of all time. And man, I have so many good memories. The samurai class was incredible in that game. You could subclass different things. I used to subclass my Red Mage, which made no sense, and I would never get a party invite. And then I would subclass like ninja and different things like that too. Warrior was the way to go, but I was
they made them both DPS now. Samurai is all about just dealing big damage and has no utility outside of that whatsoever. You're just all about dealing big damage. And Red Mage is like, you cast from afar for a while, and then when you get enough magic charged up, you're like, okay, let's go, and you charge in, you start slashing them up with your rapier. There's even a move where you do the Zoro Z. It's very gentlemanly fighter. A lot of people are happy with that one.
Yeah, that's very cool, man. That sounds pretty freaking awesome to me. But let's get right into the news, guys. We have a lot to talk about today. You can see them on the ticker. There's a lot of items to get through. Let's roll right into the first topic, which is Carnage being included in the Venom movie. So ever since Sony Studios announced the Venom movie, an avalanche of rumors, speculation, and official statements have come out. Recently, we learned that from that painfully awkward interview with Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal, that Sony sees the world that they are creating and the world that the MCU has created as having at least some kind of crossover. This implied that we could possibly see Tom Holland in the Sony Marvel universe. On the heels of that revelation, we now have a ton of reports that claim Cletus Cassidy, as the Carnage symbiote villain, will be in the Venom movie. I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but I think Sony is being incredibly smart about this whole thing. To me, Carnage in a Venom movie, especially if he's the main villain, makes a lot of sense, but I want to open this up to discussion. Dan, I'll start with you. You hear these reports of Carnage in the Venom movie. Does it excite you? What are your thoughts?
who wouldn't be excited from Carnage in any Spider-Man movie? It's always that little bit of, that little hint. Like, if you get that notice that Venom's going to be in the new Spider-Man movie, inevitably the next question is, what about Carnage? Are they going to put him in this one too? Is he going to be in the next one? Do we have to wait a whole movie? I'll bet after the credits, he's going to have a scene. And remember, the whole thing you're supposed to be talking about is Venom in the next Spider-Man movie. No one really cares. People come for the Carnage. They want to see Carnage. I'm super excited for Carnage. I love him because he's that kind of whole Mad Hatter style, literally insane villain. You don't know what he's going to do next. Spider-Man's little quips they're not landing because he's an insane man. He just wants to cut you up with an axe. It's a great character. So
yeah, for
it'll be really
sure.
cool to see him do it in this movie. They're going to have to nail the special effects because even more so than the other symbiotes, Carnage is always kind of covered with like swirling tendrils and little bits and pieces.
Correct. Yeah, man, you bring up some good points. I mean, I'll start with the visuals. I mean, yeah, you're right. Like, dude, if they can nail this symbiote look, I mean, it's so cool that they're going to go for it, both of them in one movie. Like, my thing is, honestly, it goes kind of beyond just the fact that they keep enticing me with the Venom movie because I was like, out of nowhere, I'm excited for Sony's Marvel Universe. But the fact that they're doing this all as they're on the press tour for Spider-Man Homecoming, and they're sort of piggybacking off of the press that's there for Marvel or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, this whole thing actually feels like they're being super smart about it. And Carnage is the one thing that could make Venom a hero in that movie. Like, remember when we were talking about this a couple weeks back and we were like, wait, so how is he going to be the hero? You know?
Yeah,
like, how is this going to work?
Kind of an asshole. How is he going to be like the relatable, like, go get him, Venom. Stop.
And that's exactly how you make it happen. So you put the Carnage in there. But James, I want to go to you next, man. What do you think about the announcements that have been rolling out for the Venom movie, and are you excited about Carnage being in it as possibly the villain?
Yeah, the Venom movie sounds better and better every time. Yeah, we talked about the 5 Piece podcast a few weeks ago about is Carnage going to be the villain? And I woke up yesterday to a text from Alex, who I do that podcast with, and he's like, Carnage is the villain, or in Venom. And I was just like, I threw my phone across the room. I was like, finally. I'm really excited. I hope they don't Spider-Man 3 Carnage here, but you know what? Oddly enough, I have faith in Sony in this one for some reason. And I completely agree with you. The way they're talking about this now during this piggybacking on Spider-Man Homecoming, brilliant piece right there. Because I think that movie is going to be loved by everybody because it looks like it's good.
Yeah, it looks great. Because you mean that because we've already seen the whole movie from its marketing campaign, so we know that it's going to be good.
I stopped watching the trailers a long time ago.
Me too, actually. It was like 3 or 4 weeks ago when I was like, no more. Like, how can you possibly show me anymore? But anyways, Justin, I want to get your thoughts. You're a lover of the Spider-Mans and the Spider-Man's things. So what do you think about all of this, man? Carnage in the movie, Tom Holland possibly being in the Venom movie as well. Like, what's going on here? Is this cool?
This is cool. This is really, really cool. I mean, we've already had in the comics, like, you know, Spider-Man exists and Ultimate Spider-Man exists. There can be multiple Spider-Man universes, and it can be the exact same looking Spider-Man, and that's fine. I'm totally okay if Tom Holland shows up in the Venom movie, but this is like the Sony Marvel verse, where this is, you know, this incarnation of Spider-Man, but it's the same kid. And then we got the Marvel one where it's like, oh, but in this universe, Venom doesn't exist, and we don't have that whole dynamic between them. I definitely think that's really, really cool, and I agree with you guys that Carnage is absolutely the only way that we could make Venom a good guy. Because, I mean, imagine pairing up with Venom with any other Spidey villain. Who do you think you're going to root for? So we have Venom fighting Kraven the Hunter. I'm going to root for Kraven the Hunter. We have Venom fighting Mysterio. I'm going to root for Mysterio. Like, they have that sort of, like, grounded where you think that they can maybe do some good. And Venom has that, but far, far less. And the only villain in the entire Spideyverse that has that, even less than him, is Carnage. So I think Carnage is a brilliant move on Sony's part.
Yeah, man.
I'm just worried that they might be just blowing everything in this one movie. Just like, okay, so if we get a Venom 2 or a Venom 3, we're going to lose that relatability right there because we already had Carnage.
It's true. I mean, and that's a fair point. But I just think overall, like, holy cow, look at it just seems like Sony really has their shit together with this because, like, me as a person, if you would have just told me without any kind of context that Sony was going to do its own version of the Marvel Universe, like, it just doesn't do anything for me. Like, I have literally almost no faith in them as a studio. They've never done anything that showed, like, great foresight. They've never done anything that I was like, yeah, like, wow, these guys really know how to handle a property, you know, maturely and with, you know, like, an eye towards the fans. Nothing like that has ever happened. So for them to even get Tom Hardy as Venom, which is crazy, and for them to, you know, put that out there that they're thinking about, like, R rating, and then you get Carnage involved. Like, all of this is happening as the spotlight is on Tom Holland and Spider-Man Homecoming. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty smart. One last thing I want to do here before we go into our next topic, just because we have so much to talk about. I want to go around to everybody and say, if you had to cast Carnage right now, if you're the guy, you make the decision, you're casting Carnage, who would you cast? I'm going to start with Dan.
Start with someone else. I'm looking up my guy's name.
James.
I have a couple. They're not going to be as exciting as you guys, I don't think. But it depends. I don't know how old they're going to go for Cletus Cassidy in this one, because you never know with movies, right? So if they go older, I was thinking maybe like a Ben Mendelsohn type. I think he could pull it off. He's a little different. I think he'd do it. And also, if they go younger, Will Poulter from We're the Millers. Meet the Millers? What's it called? You know that comedy?
Yeah.
That one, he's in a Narnia movie, The Revenant, and he's a bad guy in Maze Runner. He's from England, so he's got to be on somebody's scale to play a guy from the South. So I think he's a really good actor. I think he could pull off being crazy. Those are my two.
Yeah, nice. Justin?
Jack Earl Haley.
Ooh, oh my God, that's the best pick ever. Oh man, that's a good fucking pick. I can't even touch that.
Jack Earl Haley, like Rorschach, Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, should we just stop the show? Because that's such a good pick. Dan, are you good to go, or do you want me to do mine real quick?
I said Robin Lord Taylor, the small guy who plays the Penguin on Gotham. He's very crazy in that show, and I think he'd be a great crazy guy in a prison cell.
You know what? That's a good pick as well. That's really good. I was going to go with Dennis Leary. I think that he could be really good. I mean, I don't necessarily know his like range, because he really would have to go crazy, right? But he just kind of feels like he could do it, you know? I feel like he could be the guy. But those are all really good picks, man. Justin wins that round.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, like, holy crap. All right, let's go into this next story. Now, I have been waiting. This is our 18th episode, maybe 17th, because I might have screwed up. But I have been waiting since the beginning of this show for us to have our show notes and then something to happen and us to have to cover something that wasn't necessarily in the show notes, because that's awesome. It also means there's news rolling out. So like when we tag this on YouTube, that news will be predominantly trending and all these other things that you don't need to hear about, audience member. But it has finally happened. We finally had something happen while we were recording the show or getting ready for the show. And it has to do with this topic at hand right here. So this topic, traditionally, you'll see it on the ticker, is about the firing of Lord and Miller at the hands of the Dark Sith Lord Kathleen Kennedy. Now, what happened since I wrote these show notes is the fact that Ron Howard is reportedly taking over for Lord and Miller, and he's going to finish up the directing of this movie. So that's what broke. We're still going to talk about this topic, but we have to talk about Ron Howard taking over. Before we get into that, James, you and I did a talk with Brock yesterday where he actually told me it was his birthday and didn't lie to me, and we recorded our thoughts about this whole situation. And I think that people should definitely go check out that video on the Rebel Scum Podcast channel. But for those who maybe don't know what's going on, could you explain the situation with Lord and Miller, and have you had any revelations since we did that video yesterday?
Well, you're the one that broke the news to me about the new hiring of the new director. For me, when it sounded like what we talked about yesterday was when it first came out, it was creative differences. But then Variety broke that story, and Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote Empire Strikes Back, the Han Solo film, Force Awakens, and he did The Big Chill, he really apparently did not like what Lord and Miller were doing with the Han Solo film. And it sounds like they were turning it more into a comedy in the 22 Jump Street vein than in a Star Wars vein. And we talked about that a lot, how Star Wars films have to feel like Star Wars, and maybe Maybe at one point Rogue One felt more like, Saving Private Ryan than a Star Wars film, and that's why they went back. Who knows? But maybe that's why they went back and changed it, because Star Wars needs to sound like Star Wars. So, but there's like 5 weeks left of shooting still, I believe. So that's what really makes this awkward, I guess.
Right.
But then, now they bring in Ron Howard to finish it up, and I think that is the best solution for everyone on this, because he's a capable director. He's that old school Hollywood that we spoke about yesterday, how Kathleen Kennedy and Lawrence Kasdan come from there, whereas Lord and Miller come from this new wave, and maybe those two weren't meshing very well. But Ron Howard fits right in, and he's a name, and nobody doesn't like. Everyone likes Ron Howard, right? He's Richie Cunningham. Nobody has a problem with him, and he has a Lucasfilm connection with Willow, and George Lucas wanted him to do the Phantom Menace way back when, so it makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. It's good that he's on there. This entire situation is so crazy. I've been on an emotional roller coaster the more I think about it. I remember yesterday when we were recording, I was getting all heated because, look, I think that the knee-jerk reaction here is like, studio interference, like, how dare you let artists make their art? But then you kind of have to step back and look at it. It's a little bit different with Lucasfilm, the Star Wars and Marvel. They have these templated things, and, like, look, Kathy Kennedy, I think what really happened here is like some heads butted, and Kathy Kennedy was like, I was an assistant for Raiders of the Lost Ark. Screw you guys. You have no idea how deep my roots are. You're done. You're done. You'll never work in this town again, which is not true. They definitely will. But interesting situation. So, Justin, this whole thing comes out. It's kind of a revolving story. We lose the directors. Now we've got Ron Howard. Apparently they were fired. I mean, what do you think this means? Like, should people be concerned about the Han Solo film?
I think with Ron Howard at the helm, you shouldn't be too concerned. I mean, come on, this is the guy that made Apollo 13. This is the guy that made the Da Vinci Code. This is the guy that most importantly made the 2000 How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which is better than the original animated series. I don't care what any of you say, but I think it's in good hands. I think it's really in good hands. Ron Howard has proven himself as a director time and time again. It is a little concerning that it's so late in production and that they're only going to have to, they're going to have to go back, they're going to have to alter some stuff, maybe do some reshoots of scenes that were hit up in the principal photography. But I really don't think there's a lot of cause for concern just yet, especially since they said that Howard's going to be, meeting with the actors, talking with them, probably, asking some of them to voice their concerns, see what direction maybe they could take this in.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think, does anybody know offhand when this film releases? I think it's May next year.
May 24th, I think.
So, I mean, they've got almost like a year. Like, they've got a long time that they can mess around with this. And reportedly, Rogue One was 40% of that film was reshot and just put back together. Now, whether you want to believe that or not, it's clear that a lot of the movie was reshot because there's stuff in trailers that's nowhere to be found. So if anybody could do it, it's Lucasfilm. Dan, what do you think about all of this? Are you concerned about the Han Solo film here? And what exactly do you think was the issue with Kathy Kennedy and Lord and Miller?
Oh, I'm inclined to believe all the reports that say that there were these, the creative differences, saying that the two directors, Lord and Miller, were going for a more improvisational vibe in addition to being comedic, whereas the main camera work was being done in a very much script translating to shot kind of format. And that's where a lot of the strife came up, was kind of trying to kind of wing it versus, we should probably really, really buckle down and make sure we're getting exactly the shots we need in this project.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's an interesting thing. So they're essentially kind of going off script, is what you're saying. Like, they're letting the actors have a lot of room to play with it, almost encouraging them to play in that space. Which, if you look at like the Jump Street movies, like that makes sense for those movies. I think a lot of that humor is probably ad-libbed or off the cuff. But yeah, when you have Lawrence Kasdan and you have a Star Wars film, you need to hit certain beats. So if that's really the case, then yeah, that sucks. Dan, what do you think about Ron Howard, though? You think Ron Howard's the guy for the project? You think that's good?
I don't really know. There's not a film in his IMDb that I immediately am like Star Wars parallel, so it'll be interesting to see how he applies himself to the project, it probably, mid project to transition directors, they probably put some thought into who they're bringing on into the second spot. So I feel like no matter what, we're probably not going to see these same differences come up again. I feel like if anything else, Ron Howard's resume probably said, "I'll play ball." You know what I mean? And so,
right, yeah.
There you go. Like I'm not trying to make Han Solo the goofining, and
yeah, I know, right?
If he goes along with the script and keeps it production quality and all that jazz, I think he'll do okay. It's a Star Wars movie. These are not necessarily little passion projects anymore. It's not just a graying-haired short guy in charge of the whole thing yelling at people with a rolled-up piece of paper. Kind of feels quaint at this point. Yeah, so this is very much a corporate enterprise, and I think he'll fit into it.
Yeah, something we talked about yesterday, James, was the fact that we trust Kasdan a lot. We really respect him as a storyteller. And so if this film was getting away from his vision, it's a silver lining that through this whole process, we might be getting back to that vision. You're more excited about the prospect of a Han Solo film than I am. Do you think that we're going to get that Kasdan vision? Do you think that that's what Ron Howard is going to go for? I mean, he doesn't seem to be the type of director that really wants to put like an ego or a stamp on this thing. So, I mean, what are your thoughts there? Like, are we getting essentially a Kasdan film? Because he was one of the people rumored to possibly step in and just finish this film. Am I right?
Yeah, I think we're going to get something a lot closer. I think you're right. Ron Howard, it's strange that he's doing a director for hire type role, but also his relationship with Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm, I think that played a big part in it. I think he knows the vision. And yeah, to point at Kasdan said in one of the behind the scenes of Force Awakens that he would yell at J.J. Abrams when they were writing the script, and like he would throw dishes in like coffee shops, being like, "That's not how Han Solo talks." I think Han Solo is Kasdan's favorite Star Wars character. I think probably one of his favorite to write. Period. Probably aside from maybe like an Indiana. But like, I mean, Empire Strikes Back. Han Solo really finds his voice there. He understands the character more than anybody, and you're not the only one that's not super excited for a Han Solo film. It wasn't the first one I would think about for a new Star Wars spin-off. It makes so much sense because he's such a loved character. Who better to write it than they get probably as much as George Lucas, if not, a little bit more, a little bit less than him, like right there with him. And if he wrote the script and those two guys were not putting it together the way he thought, I mean, he yelled at Abrams. He had no issue there. I'm sure he has no problem yelling at two young guys whose resume aren't even up there with J.J. Abrams yet. They will.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's a big, interesting thing. My thoughts kind of go like, what Lord and Miller should do is go do the new Spaceballs movie. That would be.
Oh my God, yes.
Like that would be so meta and such like a kind of little get back at Lucasfilm sort of thing, which would be interesting. Justin, let me ask you this. Are we getting to a place in this industry where the director's role is diminishing? Because some of these really successful movies, now you look at Wonder Woman, that's an Arturist film, so it's a little bit of a different story. But as far as a franchise is concerned, DC is not even close. Marvel and Star Wars are crushing it, and they seem to be doing so by diminishing the director's role. Do you think that's a thing? Are we living in that, kind of an age when it comes to movies?
I mean, if it's a thing and it's a thing that's becoming more prevalent and popular based on everything we've seen so far, I think it's an excellent move. I think it's sometimes asking a little too much to put the vast majority of the success of a movie and the vast majority of where these good ideas are coming from and everything on the director's shoulders. So being able to bring in additional people, turn this into a collaborative effort is definitely going to be a good way to get some excellent ideas out there that maybe we wouldn't have seen before if we were just relying on a single person to come up with it. So sure. I think it's a good thing. It really is.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Where my mind goes with it though is, well, what are they exactly doing when they hire these directors then? Because you hire Lord and Miller, I mean, they're on the rise, they have name recognition, they have vision. So at what point in the interviewing process or even the beginning of production do you not realize these sort of problems? The timing feels weird to me. Also, not just the macro time, but the micro timing. This statement came out Tuesday night at 9 or 10 at night. It really felt like to me that Kennedy had been working up to this, that there was a blow up on set, and she was literally like told them they were fired. They didn't believe her. And then she goes home and is like on her BlackBerry or something like, "Oh, your ass is fired." You know what I mean? Like, boom, official statement. Like, am I wrong? Like, does this not seem a little bit telling in that sense?
No, I don't think we've heard news that like Star Wars films plagued with internal strife or anything like that. This doesn't feel like The Flash, which is still just sitting in kind of like a limbo zone. This is like a one-time issue where I think they brought this young directing pair on, and maybe, you know, there were some issues moving forward, and overall it was kind of brushed over as like, they're just funny guys, don't worry about it. And then eventually, like, you know, even if you have these young creative people on, you're running a big established brand of Star Wars. So at a certain point, I'm sure there was like a talk like, guys, Han Solo has to do things in a certain way. He can't just... You know, he doesn't quip one-liners. He that's just not how he does it, or whatever the problem was.
Right.
And if it kept happening,
yeah, that's fair.
They'd have to do something about it, because overall, they're making a Star Wars movie. They're not trying to make the Lord Miller series #1. You know, they're making Han Solo a Star Wars franchise.
Though, speaking of The Flash, it's funny you bring that up, because I did hear a rumor that Lord and Miller might be going to work on The Flash, so that might be something to watch.
I heard that too, but like if I'm Lord and Miller, like think about what you're talking about. You're talking about going from someone like Lucasfilm, where like, yeah, they're maybe crunching you on creative control, but they're knocking things out of the park, and you want to go to a studio that's hack jobbing all their films and not even doing a good job. Like, Lord and Miller, do you want to do a 2-hour-long music video? Because that's what DC is, other than Wonder Woman. So, man, don't do it, Lord and Miller, because I like Lord and Miller a lot. I want to see them go on and be really successful. Any last thoughts, guys, at all? I mean, we've got Ron Howard doing this thing. The Han Solo movie we didn't even know we wanted is now in turmoil. Maybe fine. I don't know. Is this a non-story? Like, you know what's funny is it's huge right now. It's blowing up. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody has opinions. The memes are fantastic. It's really, I think, telling as far as what. Sean Mack. Mr. Sean Mack in the building says Lord and Miller were the original directors on the Flash movie. I'm not sure, actually. I think that the Flash movie, I'm not sure about that. I know that they were attached to the project at one time. There have been a lot of rotating directors for the Flash movie that have gone out. And it's possible that Lord and Miller were those first guys that I'm thinking of. Maybe not. But this story in and of itself feels like almost much to do about nothing. And I think a lot of that has to do with Rogue One. I think the fact that Rogue One was successful despite whatever the hell happened behind the scenes can probably just kind of puts all of our minds at ease, right? I mean, like, James, as a big Star Wars fan, like, are you really concerned about this at all?
No, I'm not. And Brock said on when we were doing our video yesterday with you that he kind of wishes he didn't know what was going on behind the scenes, because why? If Ron Howard or whoever comes in and finishes the movie and ends up being a good movie, does it matter that those guys were fired? Doesn't matter. Like, to us, doesn't matter. To a viewer, to Joe down the street, doesn't matter if any of that happened. So I don't. If it ends up being a really bad movie and it's really, but I don't think it will be, because I think Kathleen Kennedy or Lucasfilm or Disney is going to let that happen. They can't. They're not going to make a bad Star Wars film. You might not like it, but they're not going to make a terrible, terrible film right now, because it's too new for them. They still need these things to succeed for the next ones to succeed, because Han Solo has to do well so that you're still interested in Episode 9 when that comes out, depending on, because you said too, Episode 8 could be the one movie that people hated and critics hated, but we'll love it, right?
Yeah.
So you never know. You still need this one to get people in for the next one, and I think it's too dangerous for it to be bad. I think it's a non-concern.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about it. Anything else you want to say about this, Justin? Are you concerned? Do you think that it's a big deal? Anything you want to throw shade at anybody?
Nah, I'm not concerned at all. I mean, It's Star Wars. Like you said, we had Rogue One become a success despite turmoil behind the scenes. It's going to do fine. Disney's been leading in the franchise in the right direction since the get-go. We're going to be okay.
Yeah, if anything, I actually feel a little bit better. Now that I've kind of settled on how I feel about it, like, yeah, I feel better now, because I didn't want Jokey McJoke face, with the Wookiee. So, yeah. Dan, any last thoughts, brother?
I pretty much concur. I'm glad that they took steps necessary to keep the Star Wars kind of vision intact. I'm glad that they didn't sway on that fact. It makes me think that Star Wars is being well stewarded into the future.
Fair enough. Fair point. The Force is still strong with the Han Solo movie. It's just the dark side of the Force. So let's roll into our next topic, and that would be that Game of Thrones.
Yo.
Holy crap. Now, I'll be completely honest with everybody. At first, I didn't want to put this on the show because I am pretty damn sure that Dan and James are not current on Thrones. However, this trailer is just way too damn awesome not to talk about. It's freaking incredible. It's blowing up everywhere right now. There's an amazing amount of action, iconic moments, and hints at crazy things to come. Will Jon Snow be able to convince the people fighting in Westeros to pull their heads out of their asses and band together against the armies of the dead? Will most of our favorite characters be killed in cruel, grotesque ways? These questions and more have been running through my head ever since I saw that trailer. Justin, I wanted to start with you because you're the only other person on this panel that watches Game of Thrones. You did a very dope breakdown on the channel yesterday, which everyone should go check out. But tell everyone a little bit about what you thought and if you've had any revelations since you recorded that video.
I have had a revelation, but overall, first off, you two need to go watch Game of Thrones immediately.
I know.
Like,
Can we just
go do that?
them?
Go do that right now. Go stare at Jon Snow's magnificent hair and pray that he gets through everything okay. But oh my gosh, it didn't really give us a huge, giant info dump like the first one did, but I mean the first one was the first one, so
True.
No surprises there. But we did get a couple of little hints from things we've seen. We got some more shots of Sandor Clegane, and we got some shots of him in the Dragon's Pit, which is that little pit in King's Landing where the Targaryens used to keep their dragons. So a lot of people are pretty sure that Clegane Bowl is happening and that Sandor is finally going to fight the Mountain, and we're going to see the long-awaited conclusion of that entire arc. But Sandor actually brings me to the biggest thing I noticed watching the trailer again and again after I did the video, which is going back to Jon Snow's expedition across the wall. Now, I did talk a little bit about that, but to expand on that, I have a theory that Jon is going across the wall to bring Daenerys proof. I feel like Jon's like, yo, Daenerys, we got these White Walkers up there and they're messing everything up. Daenerys is like, that's just a fairy tale. And he goes, well, I guess I got to go prove it to you. And I feel like he might be going up there to capture a White Walker, bring it back, and be like, look, these things are real. You should probably help me out. And then she'll be like, oh man, sorry boy, go ahead and get on Dragon, and we'll go take care of that right away. But there's also who he's bringing with him.
Yeah.
From the trailer, I'm able to assume that Jon Snow is bringing the ultimate squad to go fight across the wall. We saw Sandor Clegane in the winter with Frozen Leathers, and I think Sandor's going with Jon Snow across the wall. Most importantly, when we see Jon Snow staring out at these wildlings, and we see one person flying behind him, which I'm pretty sure is Sandor, we see another person behind him with a flaming sword.
Fire
and
sword!
110% that is Beric Dondarrion with his crazy light my sword on fire magic trick. Dude's come back to life again. He's going to be going out there with Jon Snow. So we're going to see Jon Snow, Sandor Clegane, and Beric Dondarrion going across adventures in the frozen north, which will hopefully be much better than Adventures in Dorne.
Oh, hell yeah.
Wow, that was a terrible plotline.
Rolling deep. He's rolling deep. I'll just say that the more I watched it, I think he's going up there to try to help the brothers. I think what's going to happen is the brothers on the Night Watch are going to essentially get word to him that, like, holy crap, the army of the dead is coming. And when they get there, I think that it's already kind of happened, that, like, all hell is breaking loose and he's going to have to fight a lot of his zombie-ass brothers and stuff like that. And I think that this is the way I see the season playing out, is that most of it's going to be Jon going around trying to recruit everyone to fight against it. Nobody's going to do it. Nobody. Like, every single person's going to be like, screw you, dude. This is my ball. I'm going home. And I think he's going to be forced to go up to the wall and try to band with the brothers in an attempt to stop them from coming through the wall. Because the wall is the last line of defense. If the army of the dead breaks past the wall, we're totally fucked. And so I think that he's going to go up there to try to prevent that. And I think what will bring Daenerys there is the revelation that that is her blood, that Jon is a Targaryen. And so when she realizes that and probably feels super guilty, she'll take an army, perhaps just a dragon, and run up to the wall to try to help save him. And I've actually heard... I don't know if you guys look at any of like the script leaks or any of like that craziness, but there's this rumor. I started reading this outline of like the last couple episodes, and it sounded so plausible and so crazy that I had to stop. I was like, no, and I really regret actually having read it. But let's roll on to Dan. Dan, I'm going to ask you this in a tone that matches my feelings towards you not being into Game of Thrones.
Go ahead.
So Dan,
Yeah.
did you see the trailer? You carrying on Game of Thrones?
No, I'm not current on Game of Thrones. I'm on season 2, and every time something in Game of Thrones happens, I usually go through a little checklist to see if anyone I care about is still alive.
That's amazing.
How about
no.
the Mean Child King? Is the Mean Child King still alive?
Well, do you want us to spoil it for you?
Yeah, go ahead, man. I'm gonna watch it eventually, but at this point, it's like,
Yeah.
come on. Oh,
Let's just say this.
Season 2 of Game of Thrones, no one can talk about anything around me, even though it's very relevant to other people. Get out of here. So, Little Child King, is he still doing it? Are people mad? Is he an adult mean?
He's not an adult.
All right.
He's
that's
definitely...
That's pretty telling. What about small treacherous guy? He's short. The dwarf.
He's fine. He's fine.
Yeah, he's fine.
He's good.
I just want to address the chat real quick, because people are going crazy. My buddies Austin and Cody are talking Thrones. Cody, are we finally going to see Castle Rock? Hell yeah! We actually see it in the trailer a little bit. Interesting note about the trailer, and I will get to you, James. I'm sorry, but so there is a shot in the trailer. I want everybody to go check this out, where the Unsullied roll up, and they're looking at this little hole in a stone wall. Okay? Justin, you know where I'm going with this?
I know exactly where you're going with this.
Tyrion explains in, I think, season 2, which is the last time Dan ever watched the show, that his father made him do the sewage for Castle Rock. He said that his father, trying to be cruel, made Tyrion figure out how to make the shit flow from Castle Rock like the gold flows from their mountains. And it was meant to belittle him and diminish him. But how do you think the Unsullied and the army of Daenerys is going to break through the unbreakable Castle Rock? It's going to be by that knowledge that Tyrion has through that little hole in the wall that is their sewage system. Amazing! One of the things that's crazy about Thrones is there's all these seemingly little throwaway things that foreshadow amazing events that will happen in the future. That was just one little thing I picked up on in the trailer that I thought was incredibly dope. But before I start talking too much, James, you watched the trailer, but you are not current. Am I wrong?
I've watched the first season of Game of Thrones, and I saw this trailer. So that's both ends of my Game of Thrones. I watched fast forward. Yeah, and then I haven't had HBO for like 4 years, so that's it. The trailer. Yeah, apparently the trailer was cool. There was a lot of fight. It looked like an epic fantasy tale. It looks fantastic. That's what it looked like. It looked good. Like I said, I watched the first season, which I don't even think has anything to do with anything anymore that's even going on. So, and that was, how many years ago was that now? 7 years ago?
Yeah, it was a while ago. Yeah,
a long time ago. So, yeah, and I haven't had HBO since. Like, I don't know how to watch things online, so I can't do it. That's me. But it looked cool. To your point. I'm really excited. I'm excited how excited you guys are. That's getting me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so hype on this show. I mean, we got the last two. So essentially, you guys know that it's the last 2 seasons, right?
And the prequels, all 4 prequel shows.
Oh yes, actually it's 5. George Martin clarified there's 5, and he's actively working on all of them, which is crazy. But yeah, so there's the last 2 seasons. We're heading towards this eventual. You've seen the South Park where they're just like the dragons and zombies in George R. Martin's books, they're coming, and it's this whole thing where they're playing off the fact that he has this epic that has none of the epic stuff that he's been promising. It's coming, and we're actually going to get it on the show before we get it in the books. And this means that this eventual war is kind of heading into Westeros, and just like in season 1 and in season 2, Dan, though all of these different people are bidding for power, and it's petty stuff. It's all, they're trying to get control. Mm-hmm. And there's a bigger picture here that Jon Snow and certain other characters are aware of, and it's really bad. Like in that first episode, the pilot, where those dudes get cut up and that one dude is a deserter and Ned cuts his head off and all that. That foreshadowing and that little seed is finally grown. And now we have the Army of the Dead, a huge, huge threat. So in these last 2 seasons, essentially the belief is that we're going to get this crazy ass war, the Long Night, the War for the Dawn, whatever. And that is where we're at. So if you look at the trailer within that context, I think it's pretty interesting. All these people, look, Daenerys, I have such sympathy for Daenerys' character, because how could she possibly spend her whole life and all this show building up this power to take back what she feels is rightfully hers, and then this guy is like, look, all that doesn't matter. This is what really matters. Like, that would be pretty tough for anybody to deal with. So I don't know. It's going to be a really, really good season, and I like the trailer a lot. Justin, I got to go back to you. Is there anything else that you picked up on? Anything that you want to talk about as far as the trailer? And because we're right around the corner, it's going to drop next month?
Yes, next month we are going to finally get the next Game of Thrones season, and I'm just waiting for all of these seeds that I'm hoping are going to bear fruit. We saw a very, very pissed off Jaime Lannister riding over the remains of this scorched and destroyed battlefield.
Right.
I'm just waiting for Cersei to get desperate, to do something crazy, and Jaime to just execute her, Mad King style. I've wanted that since I first heard that he executed a Mad Ruler. I'm like, okay, so I think I know where this is going, and it needs to happen. And I need to see a last line of defense against the Army of the Dead with Jon Snow and Sandor Clegane and Beric Dondarrion and Jaime Lannister. And I guess if you want Tyrion riding a dragon, we can throw that in there, something like that. And then we can throw in like Thoros Samir and Bronn of the Blackwater, and just have all of them have a go against the Army of the Dead. That's what I want. That's what I need. And I think Game of Thrones is definitely suiting up to give it to me, especially now that there's like all of the great armies of the world, the Dothraki, the armies of Westeros, and Jon Snow's armies of the North, all heading into one place. It's going to be a big final showdown.
It's going to be epic as fuck. We might have to leave it here, though. I want to just kind of get to the next topic. Justin, it seems like you and I are going to have to just do a Game of Thrones video, maybe a couple kind of on our own. All good. I would highly suggest, seriously, to you guys to catch up. Dan, I think you just have a timing issue, right? You just haven't had the time to do it?
Oh, yeah. I'll totally check it out. It sounds awesome.
Yeah. And James, we're going to figure out some Canadian-U.S. hacking so that you can get on that show.
Well, we have HBO in Canada. I just
wait, you have HBO in Canada?
We do. It's I don't think it's as good as yours. But anyway, we have very mediocre versions of everything now.
I just want to address the chat really quickly because my buddy Austin's going crazy in the chat. He's talking about how Cersei's going to go nuts. He wants to see Old Valyria. Austin, I think we're going to get Old Valyria a little bit maybe in this season, but definitely in one of the spin-offs. Like, if they don't go Old Valyria, they're dumb. Because everybody wants to see that. He says, if Tyrion is a Targaryen, I'm never watching this show again. Are you guys familiar with that? Are you guys familiar with that theory?
Tyrion the Targaryen?
Yeah.
I used to watch that Saturday mornings as a little kid.
So,
Austin.
Prima Noctra. That's all I'm going to say. It's very
Austin,
possible.
I'm going to tell you right now. Just can I just put his mind at ease really quick? Is it okay if I just put his mind at ease?
Yeah, go
All
ahead.
right, Austin. Tyrion will not be a Targaryen. If anything, Jaime and Cersei will be Targaryens, and Tyrion will be Tywin's only true son.
Oh, I fucking love that. I love that. But unfortunately, it's not just because I love crushing Austin's hopes and dreams. I think he is a Targaryen. I think he's a Targaryen, and I think we're going to find out as soon as the dragons don't eat him for lunch and they're really, really friendly with him. Because they kind of already are, right? Like, remember that scene, I think it was last season, maybe the season before, where he's like, I always wanted a dragon, and people would tell me that they were all gone, but here you are, and he, like, touches them and all that. I think he's part of Azor Ahai. So not to get all crazy with the lore and everything like that, but Azor Ahai, the prince that was promised, the fact that the dragon has 3 heads, I think the 3 heads are Jon, Daenerys, and little Tyrion. So I think that they're the 3 heads of the dragon. But I also think that one of the things that Martin plays off of in his stories is the fact that prophecy is bullshit. So it's very possible that they all just die anyways. You know what I mean? Man, I'm excited for Game of Thrones. But before we waste any more time on that, let's roll right on to our next topic. You guys okay with that?
Let's go. I talk about Thrones all day.
I know. So here we go. It is the last topic of the show. The last topic of the show is about another HBO show, Watchmen. That's right. A live-action adaptation of the legendary comic book by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons is being developed for HBO. There were rumblings of this as a possibility earlier in the year, and actually Zack Snyder was working on a Watchmen show in 2015. But it would appear that this show is officially in the pipeline and has nothing to do with the 2015 Zack Snyder version. Damon Lindelof? I don't even know. Lindelof. He was a producer and writer on Lost and developed The Leftovers on HBO, is actively developing the series and pilot. The opportunity to revisit this, one of the best comic book stories ever told world, is enticing. However, I think that the recent Zack Snyder 2009 film adaptation was amazing, and I really don't know if I want a Watchmen series. I mean, it's possible that there's much more to explore, especially if it's a high production value on HBO. Maybe? Dan, I want to start with you. How do you feel about Watchmen? How do you feel about HBO doing a live-action Watchmen TV show?
I love The Watchmen, and I'm super down for this project. I think this is exactly the kind of superhero team franchise that translates really well to these kind of like high production value outfits. You can give a bunch of costumes out. They can all look really good. They can go on the gritty adult-themed adventures that The Watchmen should go on because it's going to be on HBO. I'm positive about this. I did also really enjoy the Zack Snyder project. The 2009 film was crazy good. Check that out. I went into that having not read the Watchmen comic book, and then after that I had to read the Watchmen's comic book. And just killer. Just like, come on. You can't. Who watches the Watchmen? Me, when it comes out on HBO.
Perfect. Justin, I want to go to you next. Do you think there's more to explore in this HBO version, or do you think this show's a bad idea? Let me know your thoughts about this Watchmen show.
I mean, a lot of people that I talked to who were fans of Watchmen did want like certain different side stories that were in the Watchmen comics explored, and there's definitely a lot more room to do that in a TV show. So I think that can definitely be a very positive thing for us to get out of it. I'm just hoping, I know this might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm just hoping they stick with the ending of the film because I actually like that ending more than the comimic book. I like the implications of that a lot more. Yeah,
me too, actually. And I'll address the chat real quick here too. Patrick, what's up, Pat? Says real quick too. Let's. Patrick's a world champion. We have a world champion watching our show right now. He won a belt for that wrestling game I was telling you guys about while we were at Origins. So what's up, champ? But he says the pirate story of Watchmen doesn't need to be one of the things they expand on. I can kind of see where you're going with that, Pat. Although I think there's some cool themes that parallel the book in that as well. Austin says, do you think they're going to go weapon of mass destruction or genetically engineered alien for the show? Which is kind of interesting because you were just talking about that, Justin. I actually like the ending of the movie better as well, but I know that was a big point of contention, that there were a lot of people that liked the alien version better. I like the idea of Dr. Manhattan being the thing that threatens them. It's like their own power, coming back at them or whatever, which I think is a interesting and a nice metaphor. I want to go to James. James, if I remember correctly, you really like the Zack Snyder Watchmen film. What do you think about this HBO adaptation? Is it a good idea? Is this a bad idea?
I'm kind of 50-50 on it as a show, because I think I agree it could be a really, really good show. These characters are awesome. They could be developed a little bit more, go on those side stories that you're talking about. But how many seasons is it going to last? Is it going to overstay its welcome? That's one thing with TV shows that always kind of drives me nuts, is when they're on for too long. So I think something like this, if you're following the comic, you just follow the comic and then some little side stories. Do you have an end game, or you're like, this is a 5-season show right off the bat? You're like, this is what we're going to do. That's how I look at it. But I agree, the ending of the movie for me was superior to the comic book, definitely.
So for my own part here, I kind of don't want this show to happen. And as I thought more and more about it, so Alan Moore is incredible. And this story is probably one of his best, but I can't even say for certain that it is his best. I mean, this dude is prolific. Every subject he touches, he pulls out these little pieces of subplot and psychology, deep human level connections to these problems, and really puts them out in a very interesting narrative way. So my thing is, if HBO is going to spend the kind of money to do a comic book, a graphic novel, but it was a series of comics, and really dive deep in there, and they want to do something that's really, really great and was written well, there's a ton of good comic book stories to do. So why are you choosing to do Watchmen? I don't understand it, because I think we all really like the Zack Snyder version. Zack didn't necessarily dumb things down, but he condensed these really heady ideas and hit on all the themes that Gibbons and Moore were touching in that book. So personally for me, I don't want this show to happen. I'm worried that it could tarnish Zack's movie, and visually, because they said it has nothing to do with that 2015 version. Well, the one thing that was exciting about the Zack Snyder version is, for instance, DC did the before Watchmen, or even right now with the button at DC, they're bringing the Watchmen characters back. There's ways to tell different stories in the Watchmen universe, which is interesting. But if you're just adapting that story, is there really so much more depth that you can go into that you want to put out these episodes like this? I don't know. Dan, what do you think about that? Can you think of another graphic novel, even maybe an Alan Moore book, that you'd prefer them to do this kind of a treatment to? I mean, do you think that some of my concerns are valid? What do you think?
I see why they're going for the Watchmen, because, no matter what book I name, the Watchmen is going to have more instant appeal. It's more famous. There's already been a giant movie. People have known about it for a long time. And it does have kind of I would say, a cult following, even beyond the comic book. There's a group of people who just really like that movie. It's a good, superhero movie. So I think there's definitely enough built-in appeal to want to grab that Watchmen title and put that on the screen instead of some other very cerebral comic book or something like that. Now, I'm starting to get worried here. I'm starting to feel origin story syndrome, because if we have to hear the same story of the Watchmen again, book, movie, TV show, all the same story. Okay, I get it. He's incredibly powerful.
And it's gonna be the same lines too.
Yeah, but I was hoping, I don't know if this could be the case, but even in the movie, when you get to those little animated flashbacks, I'm would have been cool. That would have been neat to hear about. So wouldn't it be awesome if we had an HBO show that was the old adventures of the Watchmen, before things got too extreme? You know what I mean? That would be pretty awesome.
Cool.
The Watchmen in
Yes.
their heyday. We could go on weekly adventures where we fought villains and things like that. Something like that. Something a little less end of the worldy, climactic-y, something like that, and a little more superhero team.
True. You just gave me a thought as I was listening to your answer. The one angle that they could take that would super intrigue me is tell the whole thing from Ozymandias' perspective as he's formulating this plan and pulling these strings. So the big thing with the book and the movie is that you don't know it's one of the Watchmen that's doing this whole thing, and then you're left in this weird spot where you're well, technically what he's doing is morally sound, and you have a ton of characters to feel the different emotions for you. They all take their own different stances on what that means. And it's an investigation of what morality and heroism actually is. But if the whole thing was kind of restructured to show Ozymandias, like, as the main guy pulling all these strings, that could be really cool, because it's a side of the story we really don't get in the comic. But, Justin, what do you think, man? Like, can you think of another comic book story, maybe even an Alan Moore book that you'd prefer? Patrick says in the chat, like Swamp Thing or Constantine would be great. I'd love to get those explored. I think even doing V for Vendetta, which has more of a distance between its movie, could be good. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is an incredible series by Alan Moore that like was totally butchered by Universal. So like, I can think of other Alan Moore. So I love Alan Moore. I want more Alan Moore, but I don't want more Watchmen. I mean, what do you think?
I would honestly prefer any of those things to Watchmen, to be quite frank. We did get that like Constantine TV show, which I guess was a lot of people really liked, but then it got canceled. And is it coming back? I heard that it might be coming back. I don't
maybe on Sci-Fi, yeah, maybe.
I don't really know what they're doing with it, but like Constantine would have been a good one to explore. Out of all the things you mentioned, I would love to see a V for Vendetta TV series.
Yeah, man.
I really, really like that movie, and I would just love to see, that whole thing played out, get to see V, go on like some more missions, get some more excellent stuff of V, like undermining the government. Maybe even like start as far as like we get to see how the government rose before V ends up taking it down in a big bombastic finale at the very end of it.
Right.
That could be super, super cool. And yeah, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, like give me a good League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Give me that.
Yeah, please.
And I'll absolutely watch that. I will absolutely watch Captain Nemo destroy people with a sword. I will absolutely watch Alan Quatermain be Alan Quatermain. Like, yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yep, it would be amazing. James, I want to go to you. Any comic book stories that jump out to you, or are you kind of on the Watchmen like thing? Do you think the Watchmen's a good idea? Are our concerns valid? What do you think?
It doesn't matter. I don't have HBO, Josh.
They don't even have it in Canada. So I want to side act on here for just 1 second. So the first thing I say to James and Brock when I get on their show yesterday, I was like, so I just read this study, and this is real. I actually did read this study that said something that 1 in 2 Canadians will get cancer in their lifetime, and 1 in 4 Canadians will die of cancer. And it was right after Brock telling me about what was the Mandarin, the restaurant, James?
Yes.
Yeah, telling about this restaurant that everybody in Canada goes to, and I was like, connection, maybe? I don't know. That's a completely irrelevant story.
It's a great birthday message to us. One of you guys are going to get cancer. It was awesome.
Yeah, I was like, so one of you guys is done.
Yeah.
No, that's but seriously, so you don't have HBO in Canada, so you don't care.
We have HBO Canada. If Eve Vendetta, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen would be awesome. From Hell, I'd really like to see as well.
Actually, I was thinking about that.
Really cool. Yeah, I'd like to see From Hell, see some Jack the Ripper stuff, investigating that. That could be a cool TV show too. But other than that, who knows?
I just feel like anything they do visually, I'm gonna hate.
Yeah.
Because like Zach just gave us the 3D real world version of it, and it was perfect. You know what I mean? Like, say what you will about the plot or whatever. That visually, that's Watchmen. Like, all of that is Watchmen. So I don't know. I'm not super hyped on HBO choosing to do that. I think it's kind of weird, but I think we threw around some ideas that could make it kind of cool. So hopefully, all of the people that are watching this show that work at HBO, and I know there's a ton of you, take our advice. Totally free. We just want a good show. So we're gonna leave it there. All of you amazing people. Thanks for watching the show, and I want to, do sign-offs. Dan, what's going on? Tell everybody where they can find you on the interwebs.
I'm about to be back on Instagram like normal, so you can follow me at anime_Dan on Instagram. And I'm also going to be uploading onto the YouTube channel a little bit more in the coming weeks, so look for more tasty drinks and various things on our Den of Nerds YouTube.
Yeah. Plug that Star Wars video, because I don't think James has seen it, and I think it's awesome.
Okay. Well, I was trying to come up with a concept for a Star Wars video, and I came up with the idea of making some drinks, some cocktails. So I did a little cocktail episode. I called it Kitchen Cantina, And I decided to make the coolest Star Wars drink I could think of. So it's an interactive story shot where you get to decide who shot first. Is it Han or Greedo? And
I love
changes
it.
the drink the way you decide on the story. It's pretty cool. I'm working on a Kylo Ren one right now.
Yep, and this is something we're going to continue to do. We're going to have it up on the YouTube, probably put it up on our website. Oh, wait, we're going to have a website? I shouldn't be talking about that. So, yeah, I think that's going to be awesome. Justin, tell everybody where they can find you. What kind of tasty internet treats are you preparing for the peoples?
You people can find me on Twitter at Emperor_Justin to see me complain and rant about video games, as I usually do. I just put up some Final Fantasy XIV videos looking at the Samurai and the Red Mage. Depending on how those go, we might get more, so I guess we'll have to see. And we're also going to be working on a lot of content for Destiny as well. So get ready for that. And Star Wars Battlefront 2, of course, because wow.
Yes, of course. That game looks dope as hell. Both of them do, actually. So, James, you do some things on the internet. Tell people about them. Where can they find you?
You can find me on the Rebel Scum Podcast. If you go to youtube.com/Rebel Scum Podcast, that's where we do a podcast on Star Wars. And also you can find me Twitter and Instagram and all that other stuff at Petzafina. That's my name, Petzafina, not pizza.
It's not Pizza Fina?
It's not Pizza Fina, sadly.
Do you guys
pizza.
Do you have Pizza Fina in Canada?
It's called Pizza Fina Canada. That's how we.
Oh shit, man!
We have everything you have. We just add Canada to the title of everything.
Oh, that seems fair.
Sure.
That's a good way to go about it. My name's Josh. All of you peoples, you probably already know that. You can find me on the Den of Nerds and on Instagram. I'm pretty active on Instagram. Josh Likes Comics with an X, and all other places if you're good at working the Google machine. We're going to leave it there. Thanks, as always, for watching the show. If you think it was dope, tell people about it. And you can always catch this show on YouTube or Facebook later after it's live. So if you can only watch us live for a little bit, feel free to go check out the show, the full show, on one of those other platforms. As I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and nerdy day. See ya.